But I do want to give just a brief thumbnail about the inn. It was conceived by my father and other alumni of USC, of course. Oh, by the way, I'm Chris Todd. I'm the inn president this year, and it's really a special privilege for me to be president of this inn because it bears the name of my father, who, along with Judge Irving and Judge DeFilia and a lawyer named Ron Endeman and a few other distinguished USC alumni lawyers, decided that an SC alum group would fit well within the American Inns of Court model. And I think that's about all I'm going to say on that for now. We'll talk about it after Dr. Napoleon's program is done. There are some traditions that we maintain here that are different from some of the other Inns of Court in town, and I'll fill you in on that. And because I'm so excited to hear Dr. Napoleon's talk, I'm going to turn the podium over to our Vice President and Program Chair, Mary Geerdes.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Welcome, and thank you, Chris, and the other inn officers who put so much into making it possible to rearrange this schedule, and especially to Dr. Napoleon. We appreciate that. In times past, a jury was selected in the streets of Laredo by the sheriff walking down and corralling 12 decent and upright jurors or citizens, and things have changed. My, the devil is always in the details, and today our objective is to look at the details of verbal and nonverbal communication on a juror's perception and perhaps on the decision that they make through Dr. Napoleon's program on judicial influences in jury trials. Our speaker has a BA, a master, and a PhD in clinical psychology. He is a clinically trained psychologist, board certified as a fellow and diplomat of the American Board of Psychotherapists and Diagnosticians. See, they made sure the nurse had to say that, you know what I mean? He is also a fellow of the Prescribing Psychologist Register and a certified legal assistant paralegal. He receives many recognitions, not only in his field of psychology, but as a lecturer and a consultant. And he has many programs on paper, and he does seminars, not only through as an ABA provider, but also to medical folks. And a lot of it is interesting on, for instance, image and psychology of surgery and plastic surgery. And just to keep it interesting and mixed up, he also does coaching for celebrities and politicians to improve their image and speaking delivery. So he just stays extremely busy. With his professional training of over 20 years experience as a litigation consultant and commentator, with insights in many cases of local interest, including Hedgecock, Pryor, and McMartin trials, of national interest, the Lacey Peterson, Robert Blake, and Michael Jackson trials, version 1 of O.J. Simpson, and version 1 of Phil Spector. Our speaker is truly well qualified to present judicial influences in jury trials. Colleagues, please join me in welcoming the president of Napoleon Legal Consulting, Dr. Anthony Napoleon.
Are you able to hear me without the microphone?
Yes.
Is there everybody else? You want the mic?
It's always an honor for me personally to share information that is particularly interesting to me. When I first got into this business, I didn't know I was getting into this business. I was an expert on visual image and how brains process visual information. It's a rather nerdish and specific area of inquiry that neuropsychologists and neurobiologists make. And part of my research required that I set up a lab. And I chose, for no other reason than because the fit was perfect, I chose to set up a courtroom, reasoning that there is authority in the person of the judge, there is an audience, there is a stage, and there is virtually an endless amount of subject matter that when you mix all of those factors together, you can study how we human beings process information and respond to various visual stimuli. Now remember, I was mostly interested in visual analysis, so we developed techniques that would allow us to know, for instance, where our jurors would look, or where our lawyers would look, or where our judges would look, and where they were looking at what point in time when a particular content matter was being discussed. And I was pretty good at this and became pretty popular. It wasn't designed for lawyers. One day, a lawyer who had learned of the lab in this town came in and he said, "You know, I'm a little uncomfortable standing before a jury. Do you think you could help me?" I said, "Sure." And so I brought him into the makeshift lab and we worked with this person. And he was very satisfied with what he learned. You can help almost anyone improve their visual presentation. But he said to me, this is over 20 years ago, "Dr. Anthony, I'm picking a jury. Would you come in and see how I do?" Not to see anything about picking a jury, not to study anything within a real courtroom, but rather to watch his visual image. And so I went in and I was absolutely transfixed by the content, by what I saw take place. And the colloquy, I'm not giving it to you literally, but I'm paraphrasing. On one of the breaks he came up and he said, "So what do you think?" And I said, "Why did you leave juror number 6 on? Juror number 6 doesn't really care for you." "What?" I said, "No, juror number 6 doesn't like you." Well, someone who had spent a lot of time in academia studying the way brains respond to visual image, it was obvious to me, it wasn't obvious to him. And he said, "Next time I pick a jury, you're coming in here." And 20 years later, here I am. My lab was transformed from visual image into a focus on content and to a focus on power centers and how people respond. And I'm always learning. A jurist the other day, for example, said to me, "Are you aware that from where I'm sitting," and I think the judges will say, "you can't really see the witness, can't see their face." A lot of times, depending upon the blocking of the courtroom, and this should be changed, the witness is 180 from the perspective of the judge. And so therefore, all of the nonverbal communication, all of the squirming, all of the facial expressions are lost. This is especially true today because of the advent of live notes. And live notes, I have come to learn, that judges immerse themselves in the computer screen. And whatever they could see at one time, they no longer look at. They're interested in watching the narrative as it comes up in real time. So, my interest is on content as it relates to visual image. I've reversed it, and it's been reversed for a number of years, inasmuch that I was drawn into this business. My lawyer clients always ask me this question, and a lot of the jurists who will talk to us. Why do people do that? What's going on? Why did this happen? And then because of my background and being intimately involved with those individuals who would use the technology that I helped to develop, I have become ever vigilant and very interested in how public opinion is being affected by those who have a vested interest in undermining our judiciary. Remember, in my lab, I always had a place for judges. They weren't real judges. But as you'll see with some of the presentation this evening, it really doesn't matter. So let's begin with the visual part of the presentation, and I want to ask some basic questions. Let's begin with the pyramid. How many judges, magistrates, and magistrate judges are there in the state and local level in the United States? Okay. U.S. Department of Labor.